Mom has dementia, wild fatigue and burnout, afraid to follow in my mom's footsteps. The patient wrote, "We started it pretty much the same way as everyone else. Nothing critical. All seniors have it. So did my mom. She had a sense of humor about everything. She'd talk and laugh about her adventures. Mom was always an optimist, and even in the most difficult situations found a reason to laugh. Her sense of humor also helped me deal with the first signs of her forgetfulness. We both believed it was just an age-related change that could be ignored." Oh, daughter. And my adventures continue. I spent half the day yesterday looking for my glasses. You know that without them I'm like without hands. No needle to tighten a needle, no program to watch. I didn't find them until the evening when I was about to eat dinner. I opened the freezer and there were the glasses. I don't remember how I put them in and when. The situation seemed to me at the time just a curiosity. We laughed and forgot about it. However, later I began to notice that my mom was forgetting things in the most unexpected places more and more often. She lost keys, money, documents. Once she put her cell phone in the oven, and it took her a long time to realize where it had gone. At such moments she laughed and said that old age was no joy. But I was beginning to worry. Or another situation, daughter. What's new with you? How are you doing? Is everything okay? And without waiting for an answer, she immediately continues. And today I went to correct my eyebrows. So I was surprised by the master, so surprised something you, this time you called me 3 times, all to find out the time. What were you so busy today that in half an hour you forgot and called again? It didn't seem unusual to me at the time. After all, we're all used to the fact that over 60 people's memory deteriorates. Attention spans get distracted. And character deteriorates a bit. You know, a little bit of bitchiness, a little bit of quarrelsomeness. But I started to notice that my mom was getting more irritable. She could get angry over the smallest thing and then forget she was angry at all. Sometimes her mood would change several times in a day. It added tension to our relationship and it was getting harder and harder for me to understand her. Age, what can you do? I fluttered my arms. And it flashed in my head that my friend talks about her mom like that. She always loses her keys and then turns the whole house upside down. My friend and I often shared our stories, and it helped me not to feel alone in my anxiety. We both thought it was just senile crankiness and didn't pay much attention to it. I didn't see a doctor at the time. It was already like a cliché. The older a person gets, the more attention and memory deteriorate. That's what everyone says and thinks. We used to think that this is normal for the elderly. But now I realize that I should have been more attentive to these signs. Perhaps it would have helped us to notice the onset of illness earlier and take action. My mom and I had a tradition. We used to go to the coffee shop on Fridays. We'd take turns treating each other to dinner and ice cream. These evenings were our special moments where we could relax and enjoy each other's company. But each time, I noticed more and more that my mom was becoming distracted and forgetful, so this time, we ordered dinner and waited for it to arrive. The wait was about 20 minutes, so I asked for coffee right away. We were sitting and discussing the latest news when my mom suddenly got up and went to the next table. I didn't immediately realize what was going on. At that time, the waiter brought coffee to the neighboring table. Mom got up and, as if nothing unusual had happened, came over and took the cup. She took a sip right away. You should have seen the eyes of the girl whose coffee it was. I was ready to fall through the ground in shame. And my mom didn't even realize what she'd done. Then the situation was remedied. I apologized to the girl. That was the first wake-up call that made me think. I realized that her behavior was becoming more and more strange and unpredictable. The following Friday, I was too embarrassed to go to the same cafe. I made an appointment to meet my mom at a different one. Good thing I called her 15 minutes in advance. Turns out she'd already forgotten where we were meeting. I felt uneasy and already had doubts. What was really wrong with my mom? That day I realized that the problem was more serious than I thought. Mom began to forget even simple things. This time, while we were waiting for dinner, I decided to just talk to Mom and distract her. And it was like she was always looking for something with her eyes. And then her eyes fell on a fork. She started using it to brush a strand of her hair. It was strange and disturbing. I asked her what she was doing, but she couldn't explain her behavior. Mom, what are you doing? I don't know, it was involuntary. That morning we were all at my mom's cottage. Even the kids were awake and she wouldn't come out of her room. I went in to see her, and there she was. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" Couldn't remember where she was. She couldn't say how old she was or what time of year it was. The next day we saw doctors, a neurologist, a psychiatrist. The diagnosis was disappointing. Dementia. It was a shock to our whole family. We couldn't believe that in such a short time her condition had deteriorated so much that I couldn't believe it. How could it be? Until a couple months ago she seemed fine. She was thinking straight. She was taking care of herself, paid her own bills, gave us recommendations. Now all of a sudden she's suddenly forgotten how to read the word, how to use the telephone, even stood at the gas stove confused, unable to remember how to turn it on. I was horrified. How could she so quickly lose all the skills she used every day? Over the past few months, life had become sheer torture. I moved in with my mom and quit my job. The first time I was on the pills, I even felt calmer. I was glad. I even thought the doctors had misdiagnosed it. But the improvement was temporary. The disease progressed and I felt more and more helpless. But there are no miracles with this disease. Now I can't always figure out what it needs. There's confusion. Doesn't always recognize me and more often takes me for a stranger than a daughter. She's always sitting on her suitcases, packs her bags and prepares to leave. True, where she cannot explain. These moments were especially hard. Mom became a stranger to herself and to us. I didn't know how to help her. Sometimes you want to talk to someone to share your troubles. But how many times has it happened that relatives come and she has some enlightenment in her illness? They see her at her best and do not understand what happens the rest of the time. This causes misunderstanding and judgment. More than once I have seen people look at me judgmentally. I'm talking about my mom. I know they don't understand what I'm going through, but that doesn't make their judgment any less painful. I lack support and sympathy. That I'm exhausted and sleepless. Lately she hasn't slept for days at a time. She goes from room to room and I'm afraid to sleep, in case she leaves. Where to look then? I'm constantly on edge. I can't relax for a minute. My health has started to suffer too. Even my aunt looked at me with judgment in her eyes. Your mom didn't have fatigue and burnout when she raised you, and you gave up in a year and a half. You're a wreck. It's good that my father did not live to see what a wimp raised. Those words were especially painful. I'm doing my best, but I feel like a failure. And I feel hurt and resentful. Only someone who has faced such a problem will realize that it's a hell of a lot of work. And not 8 hours like at work, but around the clock. I often think about how no one can truly understand what I'm going through. It's not just nursing, it's a total immersion into her world where there is no room for me. I can't forgive myself that at the beginning of the disease I didn't pay attention to, as it seemed to me, the little things. Forgetfulness, absent-mindedness, deterioration of character. And now I have to deal with a lot of problems. I blame myself for not noticing the problems sooner. Perhaps I could have slowed the progress of the disease. What to do next and how not to fall apart myself. How to avoid burnout in such a situation and where to take strength for further care of a loved one. Maybe someone can share their recommendations, who has already gone through the same ordeal. I need advice and support. I want to know that I am not alone. It is very hard to be left alone with such a situation. And it is even more painful when people close to you do not understand and do not support you. They also judge you, like our patient, for being tired and burned out. I realize that this is a difficult ordeal for all of us, but I need support. Each person has the right to make their own decision, but if possible, you can put my mother in a specialized institution, where she will receive specialized medical care. This may be the best option if I want to preserve my health and remain a support for my mom. You yourself need the help of a psychologist or psychotherapist. Also, go to forums where people who have loved ones with dementia gather. You may be able to get good advice there. Talking to other people in the same situation can give you new ideas and strength. Don't hesitate to ask for help. It is not a sign of weakness, but a necessity in such a difficult situation.